Welcome to Life
on
Life's
Terms
with your host Justin
and Chelsey.
Today's topics are going to be single parenthood. We're going to talk about dating, work life, child development, the court system here in Canada, and hard decisions.
Those tough ones.
Yeah, it's going to be... Well, it's you who's on the spotlight on this.
I know.
I really can't be a single mom. Well, I guess nowadays I could be.
You could be.
By the way, nobody made me cry.
No, nobody made you cry.
They didn't even step up to the challenge.
Oh my goodness. What are you guys doing out there?
Yeah, nobody even tried. I might make that a clip.
Do
I
it.
think that's what I might do. Call him out. So, did you saw the cop thing?
I did, yeah.
That was unfortunate. So if anybody's out there, go to Life on Life's Terms podcast. I got a clip of a police officer doing his job and arresting this girl. What do you think of the takedown? Do you think that was harsh?
Well, I didn't get to see what happened beforehand, but either way, I do think it was a little harsh. And
Really?
I couldn't help but
So
listen to everybody say leave her alone in the background. So that might have been
the shame, the shame on you.
that might have been altering my opinion a little bit.
So let's preface this a little bit. All those old people were like old, like Italian fucking mafia people.
Thought so.
That's what they were.
Yeah.
They're old Italian mafia people. Like
I just kept hearing, "Let her go, let her go."
the shame on you. So one, also.
But I mean, she was resisting, was she not? You can't
No
exactly
kidding.
be like, "Oh, please stop, miss."
So let's really break
I
this.
take back what I said. It wasn't harsh.
Well, yeah, like so have you ever been arrested? Like cuffs on?
I've been put into handcuffs. I've never been charged with anything, and I by a police officer.
Okay.
Yes.
So when you went willingly.
Yeah.
You didn't fight.
Yeah. Well, I knew there was no point.
Exactly. So, I've been arrested many times.
No way.
Yeah. I have never been arrested by a police officer in uniform like that officer.
Oh, okay.
I've only ever been arrested by SWAT team. They call it tactical in our area. So I've always been thrown to the ground, an AR-15 in my face, like an assault rifle in my face.
Yeah.
And I was always handled that way. She was arrested very nicely.
Okay.
That was very, very nice. I mean, for a long time, he's trying to just like put her on the car, put her hands behind, and she's like, "Fuck you! You lied to me. You fucking entrapped me."
Entrapment.
Well, now the problem is with entrapment is he's a police officer in uniform.
In uniform. Yeah.
How in the fuck did he entrap you? Okay. Secondly, when control calls and says he's got to take somebody in. Guess what? He's got to take somebody in.
Yeah.
He's
doing his job.
Yeah, like she could have warrants or whatever. I mean, he's just a fucking beat cop. He's not a cop with actual, like, he doesn't have the discretion to, like, be like, no.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that.
Be like, okay, have a good day.
Yeah. like, see you later.
You don't want to go? Okay.
You have warrants? Ah, shit. See you later. Like, hope you show up next time. Like, it just doesn't work that way. And then there's those old guys, like, yelling at the fucking cop, the shame on you and all this shit. It reminded me of something biblical. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there was like this group. So yeah, I did the whole millennial thing, whipped out the phone and took there's actually more of a clip than that. The video is actually 1:35 seconds. I think they got 52 seconds or something out of it. So yeah, she was, and I mean, you could see, I don't know if you guys could see it, but I think I captured some of it where the cops calling for backup.
Yes, I noticed.
Right?
Yeah.
And the fucking, like, how many cops came all in one shot for the distress thing?
Yeah.
I was actually kind of surprised in the moment. Like,
they came quick.
They came fairly quick, but not as fast as I thought they would have, especially for being like inner city Edmonton and like a high concentration of police officers.
Yeah.
Then as well, they had fucking undercover cops expose themselves. Like there was undercover cops who showed up looking like homeless people trying to get this girl down.
I didn't. Did you?
No, I didn't get that on the video.
I was gonna say, what did I?
Because
I miss that?
I didn't really want to like.
Expose them all.
We get in enough trouble on Instagram and Facebook that like
we'll just leave that one.
I don't need EPS being like, hey, fuckhead.
You just showed a bunch of our undercovers.
We're coming up your ass again.
Yeah.
You know, like I didn't need that. So yeah, that did happen. And then yeah, it was pretty wild, man, to see, and actually my adrenaline got pumping like I was getting arrested again. I had like some serious PTSD after that. I was like, holy fuck, because the not tactical guys, but the cops who you can always tell a police officer who is a tactical police officer because they're like 6'5". They're just big, monstrous fuckers for the most part, right? So you see these big fucking cops coming out of their vehicles, and you're like, oh yeah, here we go. She's gonna get fucked up. You have no idea, little girl. Like you're in a world of fucking hurt. Yeah. You know, and then so kind of then before that, I mean, I'll say this. I'm not gonna disclose my location, but just before that, somebody tried to light my van on fire. Like they wicked my gas tank, the whole bit, and they didn't. What the fuck? Yeah, with oil. So they took 5W30, so 5 weight, and they wicked a whole bunch of whatever, put it down the gas tank, and then tried to set it on fire. I called the Edmonton Police Service here to come and investigate, and a couple hours later, I mean, I live in a high concentration of crime. So, yeah, it was pretty wild. And then they got here, and there was like nothing they could have did. Like what evidence? Right. You know, like what the fuck is that? But these were 2 cops that were like, you figured out who it is, man. Like they were just fucking head crushers. You know what I mean? So yeah, thanks to Mike Elliott. You know, he really helped me out in that situation. Actually, I guess one of the cops had heard the podcast. Oh, okay. So he was like, you're the guy who did the podcast with Mike Elliott from EPA. I was like, yeah, that was me and the other co-host, and he was like, that was a really good show. It changed my perspective on looking at cons and stuff. So it was really, really neat. But these guys were like, these were the kinds of cops, man, that would fucking boot stomp you. Let's get them. Yeah. Like, and he's like, our gag, man, is if we see a stolen ride with a pint out meth head, their life is fucked that night. We crack it, and we hope to God that they go on the chase. Holy fuck! It's like that's why we like night shift, because there's no other cops and there's no other cars on the streets. Holy fuck! So they can get in a high speed pursuit, right? Actually, funny story. My brother was like that. So my brother gets out of jail. One of my older brothers, he gets out of jail, and they brought him down to the police station downtown, not here in this city, but another city. Mm-hmm. And so he's walking out, and there's a cop car running. What does my brother do? Hops in the fucking cop car, steals the cop car just for them to fucking chase him. He was like 4 hours, 3 hours or whatever. Oh my. Back in, and I think one of those hours is them fucking his world up. Yeah. You know, like he got 2 hours because the car was full on gas. I guess like it was going out on a ride or whatever. And he fucking, that's my brother.
Well, how many brothers do you have?
I got 2 older, 1 younger.
Oh, okay.
My 2 older brothers are half brothers. My dad's kids. And my younger brother is like half from my mom. Okay. But he doesn't talk to me. He doesn't like me. It's his problem. Yeah. Yeah. He won't accept my amends from my addictive past.
Some people are like that.
Well, I was an asshole to him. I mean, I'm not gonna say I wasn't. I was a dick for sure. I was not nice to him. How eventful was your time since we last saw?
I guess it's pretty... Well, just my weekend was pretty eventful. Like I had some regional training for my little side business that I have, and I couldn't get a sitter in time, so I did 7-8 hours of training with a 1-year-old in tow.
Oh, that must have been fun.
My arms and back were pretty sore because she's not that light anymore. But she did amazing. Everybody loved her. She managed to sleep even though there's 200 people hanging around, and I survived as well. So pat myself on the back.
Somebody's got to.
Yeah.
New addition is the cappuccino maker.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brazulla Cafe. Brazulla Cafe is one of the best cafes that you could ever get. I love those guys.
We are enjoying a very delicious cappuccino.
Yeah, it's great. It was really, really good. Got the whole thing from actually the same place where I saw that girl get picked up.
Picked up.
Where she got nailed. So work life. Let's get into work life of what your work life looks like today being a single parent mom. How does that look for you? How does scheduling...
Well, luckily what I do is from home.
Mm-hmm.
And the only stuff that I have to do outside of home is the podcast, which even then it's pretty versatile, flexible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is being single with my daughter, I need flexibility, like 100%. And just because of health concerns with her, I am not yet ready to put her in daycare.
Yeah.
And if I do, I have to be on call all the time anyways because of her condition that she has. Like even the daycares I've been to and interviewed, I need to be able to drop what I'm doing and go there in case she has a certain episode.
Yeah.
And so even then, like try to find a 9-to-5 job that is going to let you go to all of the appointments at the children's hospital. And so it makes what I have to do a little bit challenging at times.
So I'm
on call all the time. Like any parent's on call all the time,
sure,
right? But I feel like I'm extra needed.
So do you find that the new work culture that's kind of being culminated in our generation accommodates this more so than like the old work culture? So I would suggest like
marketing and whatnot, you mean?
Well, even let's look at it this way. So a lot of us in our generation, the millennial generation, I think you qualify for that. Are you Generation Z?
I was born in 89.
Yeah, I think you're at the tail end of it.
Very end, I think so.
Anyway, so our generation is like, most of us work on our computers. If we don't have to show up to an office, we're not gonna. Yeah. You know, I'll work from a cafe if I can.
Yeah, done that a couple of times.
Like stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So we don't, we don't really want to be tied down by location, so to say. So you're seeing that work culture kind of cultivate in the workplace.
I have a brand new appreciation for it, that's for sure.
Yeah, so that whereas before, like my mom's Generation X, it was go to the office, slug away, blah 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 blah, right? And then the baby boomers before that, even it was like,
the factory.
You're here until it's done.
Yeah,
like you don't leave until it's done.
Yeah,
right. So that I think is kind of changing. So would you does that accommodate your lifestyle better?
Yeah, very much so.
Now, also with the skill set that you have to have in order to live in that lifestyle, I don't consider it brand building. I think that's a taboo bullshit thing to say. I think instead what it becomes is we become accountable to the people that pay us by meeting those deadlines regardless of having an office.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
when you have to have your own accountability, or like you don't have anybody there monitoring what you're doing. You don't have anybody breathing down your neck.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, do you think that there's income that is less because you're not showing up to an office? Or do you think it's about the same? So like, I personally see it this way. Like, I don't live in an office. So let me preface this a little bit better. I don't work in an office. I make fairly good money trading. The podcast does okay. I got some other things that are okay, right? But it takes a lot.
Yes.
I was going
to say it can't be just one thing. And from my experience, because I'm newer into it, you got to start really low, right? And work your way up. You got to put the time in.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go to an office, you just start at a certain wage and then go up from there. Whereas I think doing what I'm doing, you start lower, but the potential to make more money is there. Does that make sense? In a faster, it's all up to how much work you put into it, how much you dedicate your time to certain things.
Well, then I've even started seeing car dealerships. They have finance people working for them all the time, right?
Yeah.
They would be better suited allowing people to work from home than everybody working under one roof.
Yeah.
And then have a distribution center where you literally have one person sitting in that distribution center pumping out the paperwork that goes with the vehicle. You know, and then you pay somebody to drive the vehicle from point A to actual customers' doors.
Yeah.
Go Auto is basically doing that right now here in Western Canada. So there's going to be very soon no need for car dealerships. Salespeople they're almost out of a job. You know, the car sells itself. And because of that, what's going to end up happening is your finance person or sales agent, so to say, will be picking up the phone. You'll be online, like on a hold.
Yeah.
For calling a 1-800 number, and that's what you're going to have is these people doing that. So the work culture is definitely changing to where I don't think employers really want to pay housing anymore. Like they don't want to house their employees with an office and having them all under one roof.
Not if they don't have to.
Yeah. I mean, it's an overhead that's expensive. You know, it really is. So if you can cut costs as a business owner, that's always the best way, you know, if you can. So I foresee it becoming more of the work culture coming up.
Yeah, I agree. I would think from a business person's perspective, wouldn't one of their challenges be trying to find somebody that you can trust to do the work when they're not under the roof, or the same roof as you?
Well, let's look at our
no supervisor, you know what I mean?
But let's look at our contractual obligations between you and I here, even on the podcast. You don't deliver, you're gone, right? There's somebody else waiting.
Yeah,
and if there's nobody else waiting, I'll go and find somebody. You know, all it really does is it allows a business owner to be able to find people who enjoy doing what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And that's the employee I want. I don't want the employee or a partner or a contractor who is doing it because they're just banging their head against the fucking wall. Like what the hell is that? Yeah. I don't want that person even involved then. It's just like I think that's also where the work culture is changing. I think millennials definitely want to do something that has passion and all this virtualistic bullshit that they talk about. But the reality is none of them know where to start because a lot of them have never even went through anything tough. And I always say tough times make hard men or hard people, we'll say. And there's some of us in the millennial world who haven't really been given anything, and poverty was definitely, poverty is a great motivator to become an earner. Yeah. It really is. Yeah. And so are children, Yeah. I mean, that's like hand in hand. And I think a lot of millennials, they miss the boat on that. The millennials who don't have kids, the millennials who, came up from upper middle class, and then they're tainted with a little bit of adversity and they just freeze, shut down, and start crying. Yeah. And that's really hard to respect. Even on I get it. We've all been there, but the faster you just kind of pick your socks up and hop to it, the quicker it's going to turn around for you. Yeah.
Have less of a pity party.
Yeah.
Just do what needs to be done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So I would assume that your work life show some advantages because the work culture is changing. Yeah. So one of the differences that I'll tell you that my mom was always up against as a single parent mom raising me back in the day was it was impressed upon her that she would always have to disclose that she was a single parent mom. And there was a stigma.
Oh yeah, sure.
So she lost a lot of work because of that. I don't think today it's as much of a stigma as it was back in times. I actually think that employers, are compelled more by the state or the government to accommodate than ever before.
Well, now they have the rule that you can't get in trouble for having to leave because your child is sick, right?
Yeah.
They never used to have that. And people, I could only assume, like, when your mom was a single parent, that if she were in a situation where she had to leave because you were sick or whatnot, let's just use that as an example, then that would probably piss off her employer.
Well,
right?
for sure.
Whereas nowadays, you can't frown upon a parent for having to leave.
Now that
Well, I mean, you can secretly dislike it, but you can't like fire someone because they have to leave all of the time.
Well, yeah, but I'll say this as an employer, I understand the validity in that. Like, why? I mean, if you have, I would put it to you this way, and I'm not saying I would do this, but I've seen it in other firms that I've worked for, where if you can't count on somebody, you're just not going to give them anything of worth, right?
Yep, that makes
and
sense.
And eventually, because you can't count on them. Push comes to shove, you know, this contract has to get out. And sure, it's only a contract, but guess what? That contract is what yields the money that comes into the business that then ends up paying your salary.
Yeah.
You can't just blow that shit off.
Yeah.
So then you end up getting your key people who are accountable for those things, regardless if their kids get sick or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like that's what ends up becoming. And then if the employer can figure out that you spelt your name wrong, they'll fire you for it. If they can figure out one other way to weed you out,
other than like the children thing. Yeah.
Well, it's and it comes down to I've seen this in engineering and survey firms many times. When layoffs come, guess who's at the top of the list to get laid off? It's the people who they kind of really don't even like in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? And they try to keep their best assets to the end.
Yeah.
Right? So
makes sense.
So yeah. So I mean, that culture still exists.
Yeah.
But all's the rules did was they made employers become more, I would say, fatalistic in their calculation of how they're going to deploy it.
Yeah.
They just become more patient and they wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it didn't really change
and
it.
I can only assume that who they hire in the first place.
Well, I mean, I'll put it to you this way. So I've hired many people and HR people, so on and so forth. We all talk about it in context of this. It's a honeymoon stage. So like any of the businesses I have, you have a 90-day probation period.
Right. Yeah.
And the reason why I do 90 days is because everybody's a great employee for 30. They're okay at 60.
Yeah.
And then come 90.
True colors by 90.
And then by 90, they don't like it. I have some contracts
It's the
where,
same in the dating world.
Yeah. I even have some contracts where it's 6 months. You're on probation for 6 months.
Smart.
Because the amount of salary that I'm giving you, I want to be able to accommodate letting somebody go without huge repercussions from the legal side of things because you lost your passion inside of 6 months.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have a hard time working with those people. I'm not in the business to push or encourage somebody. You have to find that yourself.
Yeah.
And if you can't do it, then do us all a favor and walk away. You know?
Yeah.
And if you don't have enough balls to tap out, then your employer has to, or the boss, so to say, has to do something in that idea, like in that way of saying, you got to go. You know, it's not that you're dead weight. You've just lost your passion or whatever the hell it is. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's why contracts work well. Having independent contractors, there's no issue in saying, well, we're done. You know, it's the same. And employees are much more difficult to let go. So you're going to see things like contractual obligations like Uber deals,
right.
skip the dishes deals, so on and so forth, where that's going to become the height of of how employment relationships is going to happen, where you're going to become an individual. So like even when we were talking about skill set, I remember in the last podcast you were saying you went to school to become a medical administration person.
Yeah.
Well, how was that? How has that benefited you to this point?
Well, I have a student loan to pay off.
Yeah. I mean, it probably helped you a bit with vernacular, and typing ability, right? Like those things. But let's look at those things. Those things could have been refined, just writing blogs and stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, absolutely.
Really, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and I mean, all I did my practicum, and then I didn't actually use it for anything. I decided, well, actually, if I'm being totally honest, now I look back, I was just too chicken to
jump into it.
To jump into it. Yeah.
Well, and this is the other thing. So like, I guess I will bring this perspective to it. Mm-hmm. Could that job be taken away by automation?
I believe so.
Sure it could, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about in the last episode.
So automation and AI could happen there.
Yep.
So now let's look at the basic worth that you got from that training. Your basic worth was you learned how to type faster. Mm-hmm. You learned how to article things.
Yeah, like organize binders.
That's right. But or article things legally, like 1.1, 1.2,
Yeah.
why it's like that, why you're writing out a content, so on and so forth. You know how to put something legal together to a degree.
Yeah.
Okay.
I learned about FOIP.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Yeah. Freedom of information.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. Yeah. So.
But that was also almost 10 years ago. Like.
FOIP hasn't changed much since then.
Okay.
But even outside of FOIP, we're talking about just the basic skill. So like, for instance, if I look at my survey career, outside of all the legal stuff that could get changed, the physical worth, the basic worth that I learned from that thing was how to swing a sledgehammer appropriately without hurting myself.
Right.
Time and time again, all day long. That's what I did in the beginning, or how to cut down a tree and not kill myself with a chainsaw. That's basic worth. That it's like a skill, like playing a guitar. You're never going to lose that.
Right.
That's what I mean by basic worth, right?
Yeah.
What I think is what we're going to find very, very soon is the scholastic piece of learning is gone. It's not going to be necessary because you're going to you have things like Udemy, you have things like YouTube, you have things, all of these learning environments. And the only thing that's going to separate you from the others is how many words can you type? Your basic worth is going to be what's going to be gauged. And it's not going to be about this special thing that you have, because the special thing that you have might qualify for a surgeon. But really, the surgeon can get replaced by automation at a wholesale. Automation can't replace them in the fact of the one-off or special hip replacements or knee replacements or shoulder replacements that they incur 2 to 5% of the time. But the majority of their surgeries, which is basically a program, again and again and again, automation will take that over. So a surgeon will always have a job. It's just smaller.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if we look at you and I, well, we don't have that skill, but the skills that we have is how to manipulate social media. Mm-hmm. How do you get that? You don't get that by watching a video. You get that by playing. That's how you play.
Yeah. Well, right? And even just people skills.
100%.
Like some people just lack people skills.
Yeah. Well, 100, especially, and that's becoming more and more. We're starting to see in society more introverts as opposed to extroverts, right? So that's why I'm saying the workplace, even in itself, going back to my mom didn't have the ability to use basic whatever and work from home.
Right.
That was a fucking dream that like the top 5% of corporate women had.
Yeah.
Right. And then they're out of the field by the time they're 35 years old. Most women don't last in the field of anything past 40 years old. That's a real statistic. So why does that
like in your mom's day and age, or even currently?
Even now, currently.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. And a big I would beg to say that a reasoning for it is it's hard to be maternal in the work world. Mm-hmm. Right? And because of that difficulty, what ends up becoming, even if you're working at home.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, even if you're working at home, the fact is you're still trying to eliminate the amount of time that you're exposed to work in order to give that time to your child.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I think the fundamental difference between men and women is men really don't. I mean, I care about my kid, but at the same time, I want us to live really, really well.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking at the measurement of what we can accommodate. I'm looking at the measurement of how to be better. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm not saying that women don't do that. I'm not saying that women don't go to that place in their mind where they become competitive, because I think women are just as competitive as men are. But like I said, I think the difference is when that maternal piece comes in. Men don't have that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. There's been times when Elizabeth is playing and she is occupied, and I will be typing away, and then I realize that she no longer wants to play independently. She wants my attention. I will stop everything just because my guilt will kick in, and I instantly want to be a mom.
Yeah.
And so I could see where that maternal factor is different.
It's difficult, right? Because there's that calling where I think with men, we have that step away where we can just be like, no, I got to do this.
Yeah.
This is your financial future.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we'll block that out. Actually, I just had a conversation with my partner yesterday about how it's fundamentally more difficult for men to bond with their child in a separated co-parenting way. And the reasoning for it is because we don't have a natural ability of a maternal instinct. Mm-hmm. It's not the same for us. I'm not saying that men don't fall in love with their kids. We definitely do.
Yes.
But it's a different capacity.
Yeah.
And when men don't see their children on a daily contingency or enough of a contingency, what ends up happening is we just either fall away or we work harder to see them.
Yeah.
That's the factor of men that I've seen generally. I know I'm generalizing and I'm globalizing, but I'm just saying in a general way, that's what I've seen. And so when we're talking about the single parent motherhood stuff, like I said, in my mom's day, the question was always, well, where's his dad?
Yeah.
It didn't matter for an employer to know where my dad was. However, like I said, I was impressed upon her that she had to say that. And it was actually easier for my mom to live on this system than it was to live with a working world.
Yeah.
Like it just, there was no, it just wasn't conducive to work and have a son, especially a son, where she was always looked down upon in a way of like, well, how can you raise a son?
Yeah. Yeah.
Those kinds of things. I don't think that stigma really exists anymore. Maybe to a degree, but not as large as it was back in the early 80s. Like that was huge back then. My mom was always discriminated against about it. Even the teachers in school.
Yeah, I could see that.
Would always be like, well, you need to get him a male role model. And I needed that. I mean, I'm not saying that I didn't. But at the same time, it was always impressed upon her that she wasn't doing enough. And people always felt the obligation of saying, well, have you thought about this? Or like they were always interjecting their ideas, right?
Yeah, of course.
And that's I mean, it's probably pretty shitty for my mom to go through that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know, and I think that's the big difference. So if there's anything that I'm doing, is I guess I'm kind of gauging the evolution of what you're going through compared to what it was. Because there was many women in the early 80s where men just walked away from their families. And we started seeing a trend of this back in the late 60s, more so in the mid 70s, and greatly in the early 80s. Like
really?
it just was more and more and more where men.
See, I thought it was opposite. I didn't know that. Okay.
No, men started walking away, and then what we see in the early 90s is women started abandoning their children as well.
Yeah.
And then now we start, I mean, it's so convoluted now. It's very hard to see where things are.
Yeah.
But one thing that we can definitely say, and I know I'm going to get a lot of shit for this, is the nuclear family to a degree worked out very, very well. Like in context of the children did better in development, so on and so forth. Understanding boundaries and relationship building was much better, and they weren't partisan to whatever gender they were. So like, for instance, I probably as a young, like when I was young, I got along better with adults and female adults because that's all my mom really ever exposed me to.
Yeah.
So when it came for me to play with little boys, I would just fight them. Because that's what it was. Like I would just fight. And then I think it's the other way too with little girls who are raised by their dads. Right? They they may have a difficult time with developing relationships with
women,
little girls.
Yeah.
Right? And so when we see a nuclear family or whatever, like two parents involved with their kids, we find that the children have a better ability to develop with either gender. It doesn't matter to them.
For sure.
Really,
yeah.
right? They've developed a relationship with a male, their father, and they've developed a relationship with their mother or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Right? So there's definitely something fundamental about that. There's an innateness that we as humans see in that development of a relationship, and then we can contribute that later on in the schoolyard, so to say.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of an interesting fact. I think if you look into it, the whole tribalism thing is very, very real for humans. You know,
definitely.
Dating.
I just want to quickly reference your mom having being a single parent of a male. I have thought about that. I am grateful that I have a daughter, because even like very vaguely, I will just say that her father is in the picture, but he's in and out of the picture. So I look at little things like, what if I had a son? And obviously potty training is not the hard part, but what about puberty? And I believe there's still the stigma that a man needs a male role model. But there's also the stigma that a daughter needs a father figure so she doesn't have, quote, daddy issues.
Is it a stigma or is it a reality?
A reality, yeah. Yeah. As those words were coming out of my mouth, I was like, no, it's true.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that.
There's that judgment, I guess.
There was definitely a fundamental flaw in the way that I was raised without a predominant male figure. And the only male figure that I really had in my life that was positive was a fella named Jim, who was a geologist in Northern Ontario, and he taught me really how to be a gentleman. You know what I mean? Like he taught me that stuff.
Yeah.
Am I just if I look at my mom's brothers, they're all codependent fuckwoids. Like they get into relationships with women, their women become everything of their life, you know, that kind of stuff. And they're big mama's boys too, right? So like, sure, they all lost their dad young, you know, like I think my mom lost her dad when she was 2.
Okay.
And then her brothers lost like 9, 10, 11, those areas.
Right.
And so, but
which is a pretty important age, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean they were young, but there's still some sort of development in there, right?
Oh, for sure.
And so, anyways, in saying all of that, I definitely have played out the role of codependence with women.
Yeah,
and I see it now, and it's taken a lot of work in codependence to be like codependent no more, so on and so forth, to be independent in the relationship that I'm in right now. It's taken a lot of work to do that. And that's like, I have to go through an exercise all the time of where would I be if we broke up?
Right.
I literally have to think of that, because if I don't, I'm in big trouble.
Yeah.
Like I have to keep that in the forefront of my mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not saying that the other shoe's going to fall, just I don't ever want to be in a place where I'm afraid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't want to be in that place. So yeah, definitely male role models, and I think even female role models. I mean, I've seen some fucked up kids grow up without moms, and they have no empathy nor respect for women. Like just none.
Yeah.
They just dog them, they treat them like shit, whatever.
Or they're trying to, in a relationship, make their partner a mom.
Yeah, or they have mommy issues.
Yeah, mommy issues.
Right?
It's a real thing too.
Yeah. So that happens as well, right?
Yeah,
And
I've seen it.
That's a lack of development, really, right? Like there's something missing in the developmental relationship between them. Can that be cured with a psychologist? I would suggest to a degree, but also it takes a lot of practice. You got to be open to it. You have to admit it.
You have to acknowledge
Right?
it. You have to be aware for sure.
Dating single. How difficult has that been difficult for you? Does it present a challenge?
Well, I have only attempted to date once, and it was very short-lived. And I, even before it ended, I had kind of decided that there's still me that I want to work on. I'm not
good for you
100% in my life where I want to be, and I have been called selfish for this, but I would rather focus on myself and put more effort and time into my development and getting further and reaching my goals and focusing on myself and my daughter over dating. It's just more of a priority for me.
Yeah. My mom never dated as I was growing up. And then she finally started when I was in young adolescence. Hence my brother's dad.
Okay.
I tolerate him. I respect him to a degree. But him and I have had it out.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't know what the dynamic of that relationship was. And then all of a sudden there's this guy trying to get me to call him dad. Like,
no thanks.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Try that one again. You know how many people in this neighborhood have tried to get me to call them dad? Like, fuck. You know? And that's as a male coming up in a single parent family, every male and their fucking dog wants to be your dad.
Yeah.
You know, or your big brother or whatever. Fuck off. I don't need that. I've had that how many times, and they all just walk out. You're not my dad. Like, you're not biologically to me. And my biological dad walked the fuck away. So, you know, my whole idea of trusting in some sort of relationship with another man was fundamentally flawed from the beginning. Only in recovery did that really change, because we were a bunch of broken men and understood how much or how important it was to foster that relationship that was unconditional. And then by seeing that, then I had more respect. And some of the gangsters I was around, there was some serious unconditional caring for each other. I mean, they were jackals. They would fucking murder you if they had to. You know, like that's what they were. But there was some serious honor between those people as well. Like, we were very, very tight in our group. And that, I think a lot of that was, if you look at the people that was in that group, we all didn't have dads for the most part. Okay. Right? Yeah. We had the prima donna woman, you know what I mean? Like the Donna, the matriarch. Yeah. You know, and
so you guys kind of, it was like a unspoken bond.
Yeah. And we've been in violent situations with each other where, you know, your back was against your brother's back, so to say. And, and you're fucking slugging it out, that kind of stuff. Right. Yeah. So that definitely did exist. But it was more so in recovery. Like, those men were men who were chewed up, spit out, tossed out, you know, that whole fucking thing. And because of that, I would suggest that those relationships are way stronger, reinforcing male bonding than anything ever before in my life. So there was an issue with that.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this. I was just saying that there's a fundamental issue between me and like the guy that my mom brought in. When do you think that could be an issue for your daughter if you do bring in a man, say 9-10 years down the road, 12 years down the road? Because then it's just you and her. Yeah. And let's face it, I mean,
like, who the fuck is this dude?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then let's also bring this in as, you know, little girls, when they play in the schoolyard, they don't punch and fight. They'll make up lies. You know what I mean? They make up lies.
They're more verbal fighters. Yeah.
They twist, they contort, they manipulate, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, you don't want to think that your daughter can do something like that, but you have to be suspicious.
Oh yeah.
You know, like, and it's difficult to become suspicious because also you have 10 years of not having, or maybe not having that unbiased reflection of another person in the relationship on a three-way. I think, you know, when you have two parents that are living in the same house with their children, the two perspectives that come together are not in the same filter. When it's only one parent in a house, that one filter is the only filter that's being looked at with their kid. And so it's very difficult. You get blindsided a lot, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I definitely saw that with my mom. She was blindsided a lot with me. I was a sneaky fucker, man. Like I said in my blog, I wasn't the kid. I wasn't the kid who was loud and brash in front of my mom. I was the kid that would blow the fucking, like, I didn't topple the boat with my mom around. I was the kid that fucking blew it up and would make sure that nothing came back to her. Right? Like, it was a catastrophe, but I made sure she was walking away from the lake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that's the way so when everything came to a head, my mom had not a fucking idea. Like, it was just totally blind. She was blindsided by all of it. You know, like, it was like, holy shit. That was that. So I can see that other side. Have you put any consideration to that?
No, I have not. I'm taking this all in right now. I'm like, I know I've thought, like, would it be better to date in a couple years when she's still young and then... Oh, but like, I don't know. I just have no interest in dating right now. I really don't.
Yeah.
And
you're not going to do something that you don't want to do.
No.
No.
It's such a difficult thing to think about. I don't know. It's a tough one.
It is. Yeah. It is, because you see the
I
developmental
have no
side
idea
of it.
What her personality will be like at that time.
Yeah.
How open and accepting she would maybe, or just like dead set against it. Like, no, Mom, it's always been you and I.
And then this is the other thing too, is like, how much do you give them? Because I've been in a relationship where I've dated a girl with a child, and the child just really doesn't want you there, and then all of a sudden she concedes to the child, which, I mean, whatever, regardless. Yeah. But then all of a sudden you have to think to yourself, well, what are you reinforcing with your kid?
Yeah, that they always get their way.
That, and then they also, like, they become the man of your house.
Yeah.
How fucked up is that?
Yeah.
Like, that's fucked up. You know, you can't give a little fucking, like I really dislike that saying when people look at their son and they say, "Oh, my little man." You have any idea? You have any idea what it takes to earn the respect to become a fucking man in society? I mean, I would love to switch roles with people. People say that men have it so great in life. We rule the roost. Yeah, that comes with a huge consequence, man.
Yeah.
Like when we go to war, who goes to war first? When the ship is going down, who jumps in the water first? You know what I mean? My entire life, I've always been told I'm less than. You honor, like my blog said, you honor thy mother.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're told our entire lives. We become subservient to that whole entire ideology. So in that context, I think there needs to be a recognition of none of us have it easy.
No, I agree.
Women don't know what it is to be a man, and a man doesn't know what it is to be a woman. We are we may look alike, but the reality is we are completely different from each other.
Very, very different.
Right?
Yeah.
Even genetically, biochemically, the whole bit, we're very, very different from each other. Child development. I think this all kind of falls into that child development piece.
Yeah.
You and I were talking about it before. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tie in the court system to child development and hard decisions. So hard decisions, do you find it impressed upon you that you're the one who solely deals with the consequences, whether it be negative or positive, from every decision? There's no bearing weight. You know what I mean? Like if you had another partner, or you had a partner that was inclusively a part of this relationship between you and your daughter, you'd be able to bear that burden, right? You say, I'm not making the decision on this. You can.
Yeah.
Right? And then you start learning trust between the two parents as you go on, because you're like, yeah, you handled that well, and I respect the way that you handled that.
Yeah.
Right? And then all of a sudden when they're 10 or 15, you guys can hold the front.
Yes. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I have a friend of mine. She has a baby due very soon. And her partner are butting heads about a certain decision that they're trying to make before. And then I was talking to her about it. And I just finally said to her, I said, be grateful that you actually have a partner to lean on with this decision, because it is a big decision.
Yeah.
And any, say, negative outcome that comes of it, or maybe you change your mind about it, or you wish you would have made a different decision in the end, because ultimately they are choosing together. You do not have that burden on your shoulders because you made the decision with somebody else. It's not like, fuck, I wish I could turn back time.
But also at the same time, it's not up to partner to blame each other if it goes sideways. Mm-hmm. That was the best. But yeah. You know what I mean? Like, because that's the other thing too, where you'll see decisions like that split. You're like, fuck you. I can't believe that you talked me into that. Yeah. No, man. Like, it's not about being talked in. It's about you discerned accordingly as partnership.
Yeah. Well, and they do figure everything out as partners. And I've just said to her, sometimes it would have been nice to make that decision with somebody else, not just solely on my own.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the court system. How are you finding the court system?
Everything's a longer process than I thought it was.
Oh, yeah.
Like way longer.
Yeah, yeah. Do you find it biased?
Let
me ask you, let me reframe that.
Yeah.
Do you think you could manipulate the system to your benefit if you had to?
If I had to, which I don't, but if I had to, probably I think mothers have an upper hand just in general.
Yeah, we see a lot of this in the Canadian court system, especially in family court. There's no rule book. We've talked about this many times on the podcast with Kenny. And that's a growing. And then the second that you say that you're a men's rights activist, well, now you're far right and you're a fucking Nazi.
Right.
Like, the court system just doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. And I don't think legal should have ever gotten into the place of trying to establish boundaries for relationships and putting in place debt collectors. That should have never happened.
Yeah.
I think the legal system is the wrong tool for that. And I also think that child family services is the wrong tool for that. I think there needs to be there needs to be a whole revamp of the system, because both of them are partial to one or the other as opposed to the entire family.
Yes.
They pick sides as opposed to the development of every individual, not just mother and daughter, mother and son, or father and daughter, father and son, but all parties involved, or father and father, daughter, wife and wife, whatever the situation may look like. I mean, all I'm saying is that it instead instigates separate sides. However, me and my partner were saying this. You don't see that really with rich people.
No.
Like really, when you go into the family court, you see the court system creating sides. Right? Like in our world, our, let's say, wage earning, right? Okay. But you look at like Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. There's a little bit in the tabloid, but I bet you 10-1 it was amicable.
Yeah.
Just sat down, signed the paperwork. This is the money. I see my kids, you see your kids. This is what it looks like. That's it. That's all.
Yeah. Well, that's the approach that my daughter's father and I are taking. We are trying to be pretty just like civil, level-headed, on the same page. I do know of some people where it's the complete opposite. And I did notice that the women always seem to have the upper hand, whether or not that was even deserved or earned, just automatically being mom.
I mean, I congratulate you for being diplomatic about it all, right? Being amicable towards the entire situation, what is what it seems like.
Yeah.
But as I was saying, I think in the social realm of the court system that we deal with, it is a two-tiered system.
Mm-hmm.
It's different if you have money compared to two people using the mediation process that's afforded for free from as opposed to you hiring a lawyer, him hiring a lawyer.
Yes.
You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
a huge difference. And the mediation will always side on the side of the mom, is what it seems like, as opposed to really being diplomatic down the middle.
Right.
It would have to take the one party to ensure that there's diplomacy that's involved throughout the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's because you could go riot. And let's say you were hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Let's
Oh,
say,
yeah. If I just wanted to be a spiteful little bitch.
yeah. I mean, it would be easy. And even almost, I think, in some of the cases I've seen in family court, condoned. It's condoned. Well,
Yeah.
get
yeah.
an EPO, get an EPO, let's get you into court. And then I've heard this from one of my client's lawyers. I can't say exactly who, obviously, because of confidence, but the lawyer literally said, we're going to go into court once. That's your freebie. You being a woman, we're going to get everything on your side. And if he doesn't like it, he has to take you to court.
Yeah.
He has to pay,
Right.
not you. We're going to get all the balls in your court.
And then he has to fight it.
And then he has to take them away.
Yes.
So-
and it's much harder to do,
So
right?
fuck talking about money. He's going to fight you for access of the children.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
We're not. I mean, I don't know a male right now who has any decision entitlement about what school their children go to.
Mm-hmm.
None. They don't have any entitlement decision of who is the fundamental stepdad
Yeah.
in that child's life.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's just look past it. Well, I'm my own fucking life. I make my own decisions. Well, that's fantastic. But those are our children.
Yeah. Yeah.
In that environment. Right? And I think it takes a big person to look at themselves in an honest way and say, yeah, every decision, I may be independent and alone and with these kids and we split up and all this stuff, but it's still their child.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the only way to keep this on the level is they have to be involved to some degree. Because if they're not involved, like we were saying earlier, it's fundamentally more challenging for a man to become maternal towards their child when
Yes.
they don't see them every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very quickly, it will become an uncle looking at their nieces and nephews
Yeah.
as opposed to their father looking at their children.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, I mean, that's a hard call to make.
Oh, yeah.
You know, do you foresee yourself navigating it that way in the future in context of relationship? See, my mom had the benefit. My dad just walked away.
Mm-hmm.
Like he didn't give a fuck. My mom did allow him to be involved. And he literally just said, I don't want to be.
Yeah.
You know, like my earliest memory of my dad is him pushing me away saying that he wasn't my dad.
Oh my God, that's fucked.
Yeah, like that's one of my earliest
Oh,
memories.
that just breaks my heart.
Right? So my mom didn't have that issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess my question to you is, will you be able to adhere to that by being honest enough with yourself saying, well, yeah, you know, in 5 years I might want to date, but I don't think I'm going to, I mean, one, my daughter has to, at some degree, accept him on our terms, but she's going to accept him regardless. Like at some point there's like a, you know, pass the post kind of deal where you have to accept. I don't give a fuck if you like him or not.
Yeah.
Not unless he's like physically harming you.
Yeah,
in some
exactly.
degree,
Yeah.
Right. And then your ex has the same place, but you have to discern what length of time that's going to take.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and
Well, I think for sure her father his opinion would matter to me, because that whoever I date, that man is going to be a part of his daughter's life. We've talked about this. He was given the option to meet the person that I dated very briefly. I said, I want to let you know that I'm seeing somebody. Would you like to meet him first?
Yeah.
But there's always gonna be a line. Like it could be a situation where he would not approve of a single person. Does that mean I'm gonna remain single for the rest of my life? No.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think that's hard to navigate, right?
It's so hard. Yeah.
It's hard to navigate. And again, being on your own. So do you have a confidant that you talk about this stuff to, where their opinion you regard in high favor as you go forth throughout this discernment, like this piece? Like, who do you lean on throughout this process?
I haven't really leaned on anyone, I guess, now that I think about it. It's all just been... Well, I do have, like, my best friend and I have talked about it, but she's not a parent, so...
Well, and it's funny, like, I think I know the studio's cold, but as you're sitting here, your arms are crossed.
Yes, yeah.
You're almost like your body language and your, legs are
crossed.
crossed.
I am completely closed off right now.
Yeah. I get that it's difficult to talk about, right? But at the same time, I think the value of the listeners listening to this stuff, I think these are the thoughts that happen to all of us. No,
I want people to listen to this.
Yeah, it's difficult. I think it's a difficult place to navigate, especially as a single parent mom. I think the thing that
I didn't realize there would be so many ifs and ands, like so many. Yes, your child's opinion matters, but how much of your child's opinion matters? Like what we were just discussing, when they meet of somebody in the future who I would become romantically involved with, like. When you actually break it down, it's not just a yes or no. Yes, their opinion matters. No, it doesn't. There's, like you said, a timeline, all that kind of stuff. You don't really think about before until you're faced with that, or you, like right now when we're discussing it.
Well, and I think that perspective only comes because of a lived experience of being a product of a single parent family. That's the only reason why. Like the other thing is I never really remember my mom getting fucked. I've never heard that. So and I'm sure I'm sure you've heard your parents at some point, not something that you want to, anybody really psychologically wants to admit, right? But that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you have some guy, another bull facing another bull in the pen. What the fuck? And I'm not saying that me and my it's just a fucked up scenario. And so that's why I guess my caution is, how long do you go? Because eventually, you keep pissing in the same corner, you own that corner. And then all of a sudden somebody comes into that environment. Yeah. It's strange at the very least. Yeah. And then it becomes very territorial. And maybe that's just me. Maybe that's the kind of guy I am, and whatever. Like maybe that's what it is.
No, I think that makes complete sense. That's how I would assume it would be, very territorial.
And I'm not sure what the dynamic would be with like a daughter and some stepdad coming in. You know what I mean? I don't know how she would take that.
Well, you know what? The person I call dad is not my biological father.
Okay.
He came into the picture, I think I was 3 years old.
Okay.
And he raised me. He's who I call my dad. My biological father came into the picture around the time I was 11 years old. Okay. And then was gone early 20s. And for me, I think it's because I was at a young enough age. Okay, actually, I was going to say I had no problems with my dad not being biologically my dad. But no, as I got a little older, I remember being so mad at him one time for disciplining me, giving me shit for whatever I did. I don't know, being a little brat. And I was throwing a fit, cleaning up my toys, being like, and you're not even my real dad. And I can tell you this, I have never felt so guilty because he actually heard me say it and he wasn't meant to hear me say it. And the look on his face was his heart broke. Oh, yeah. I don't know where I was going with that. That's just what made, I don't know what.
I think that
memory just came to me.
I think that falls in the same statement of when my mom told me that she could have sent me out for adoption. I was like, why didn't you?
Yeah.
Right? Like I think we all have that one regret where we said something to somebody that we actually cared about when we were young. And it's like, fuck, I wish I could, even in the moment as it came out of my mouth, I was like, I wish, well, I can't say that because at the moment I really meant that. I really felt that. One of the promises that I made myself was if I having children or whatever, I would make sure that I was financially capable of putting it together. Yeah. However, that can send people to bad places too. Believe me.
Yeah, I bet.
Right? I mean, yeah. So anyways, yeah, I think, yeah. So when your dad did come back in the picture, what does that like your biological dad, what does that look like today? Like, how does that relationship work out? Like, do you and your stepdad and your biological dad all hang out together?
He's
like,
not in the picture anymore.
Which one?
Biological.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was awkward.
A contentious issue?
When he did come into the picture, like I said, I think I was 11, I don't know, junior high. And, I didn't know if I should call him dad. I didn't know if I should call him by his first name. I had this other man in my life who I considered to be my dad, who I called my dad. And I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And then there was the dad who had been estranged for 11 years trying to make up for lost time. And then there was my dad, who I could see felt threatened, although he didn't want to admit it. And then it was just... I felt like I was caught in the middle of the worst situation.
So where do you think your dad's, why did he, how do I preface this? Why do you think he felt threatened with your biological dad coming into the picture?
I think because my biological dad came into the picture, and because he was trying to make up for lost time, and there was buying me lots of gifts, and everything was just doing fun experiences, there was no discipline. Let's just say that. There was no negative to me. I could do no wrong in his eyes. But then my dad at home, who I lived with, obviously, if I was a little shit, he would still discipline me for it. He would ground me. He would take away privileges. He still had to be the bad cop, whereas my biological father was always the good cop.
And how long did that last for again? Like, how long was he back in your life at that time?
From like 11 until early 20s. So he was around for a while.
Wow.
But then in high school, there was some fiascos that went on. And I actually ended up living with my biological father for a while.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how does that, just in perspective, how does that reflect on your relationship with men today? Because I think,
I'm not very trusting. I can say that much.
Why?
I think because, I can't just blame it on the father figure perspective. I guess there's due to actual relationships. Maybe because my biological father came back into the picture and I was living on cloud 9, and then shit fell apart, and then he was gone again. But I can honestly say part of that reason that he's gone at this point is my decision. I have not allowed him to come back a second time, if that makes any sense.
Sure, but what were the reasons for him to go in the first place?
The very, very first time, when I was little?
Or like when it was your decision? That's more what I'm intrigued about. So like, why did you say no? Like in your 20s, I guess it was?
Yeah.
I feel like this is an Oprah moment.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to actually air everything. I can say that when I ended up having to live with my biological father and my stepmother at the time, that was my first time experiencing what addiction is like, because my biological father actually became a drug addict.
Well, that's fair to say. I mean,
yeah,
there's no shame in that. I mean, my dad's a fuck up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, and I don't hold anything against him for being an addict, obviously, because I became one too. Just some stuff came to light that even, I can't say it all on air because there are people involved that would be very hurt.
Yeah.
If they knew that they don't know what I know, and they weren't part of a couple of conversations that I had with my biological father. Oh, and it was one conversation that we had that I kept to myself, and some details that were shared with me are the reason why I feel no need to have him in my life anymore. But your
biological dad, that is.
Yes, and I do have a sibling that would be crushed by it, and his ex-wife would probably not be very happy of the information either. So it wouldn't do them any good knowing the truth.
We adhere to making you can only make amends as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I applaud you for that, but what it sounds like to me, just so that we can get the narrative straight, is that there was some issues, I guess, that obviously broke your moral code.
Yes. Yeah.
And because of that, you moved on, and therefore that's why you decided to protect yourself in this way.
Yeah. There you go.
I mean, I think that's the gist of it, or what's like what it seems to be.
Yeah. I'm busy beating around the bush. You said it more clearly.
Yeah. So I think that's what it seems to be. Now, because of that, was that information? This is my question. Was that information? Do you think that you should have known that? Because it obviously affected you in a way where now your relationship with him is contentious, right? Like, it doesn't seem like he can come back. He can come back from it.
No, absolutely no coming back from it.
So, like, had you never known this information that you have, do you think your relationship would have been all right? You would have just carried on.
Yeah.
See, that's unfortunate. And the reason why I say that is because, like, it altered the course of your relationship. And maybe it was information that you really didn't need to have. Right? Because it affected the relationship so bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Nobody benefited from hearing this information.
So, and I'm not saying that, like, secrets are good. All I'm saying is that, like remember we were talking about disclosing what we would disclose to our kids about our active addiction.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of what I'm getting at here, right? Like, there was no benefit to it. So is there a benefit, like I said, and I know you didn't do this, but like I said, is there a benefit telling your kids that I had a gangbang with a bunch of bikers or gangsters or something? No, there's no benefit to that. Nobody needs to know that.
Right.
All you have to say is that I was in active addiction in a very general form.
Yeah.
Unless that information is going to hurt somebody. Like they're a fucking sexual deviant. And I'm not saying that he is. All I'm saying is that's the kind of information that's going to protect you or your daughter or whoever, right? And if that's not the kind of information that's being disseminated, then you know what? At the end of the day, it obviously hurt or impacted your relationship so much that it was like, no, I just don't want to talk to them. You know? And and that's kind of, I applaud you for that. I give you a lot of respect for that. But at the same time, whoever told you that.
No, it's him.
Oh. Well, that's really sad.
He was fucked up though. He was high at the time.
Yeah. See, that's unfortunate, eh? Like it's very difficult for, that's so unfortunate, especially with the impact of...
You know what the worst part is? I did not make this decision until a couple of years after I was given the information. I was in such shock and denial and ignored everything that he shared with me until a couple of years of it festering. I blew up, absolutely blew up on him and told him to fucking stay out of my life.
Huh.
And then,
let me ask you this. If he got sober and made amends, do you think...
I think he is. I think he has been for years.
Would you hear the amends out?
No, he tried.
Really?
Actually, no, he didn't really try. He tried to get a hold of me and the message was, let's fucking not do this. Let's put shit behind us and move on. And that's not making amends at all. That's telling me to get over it. I think he used the words, get over it. Let's just both get over it. Let's just move on. Like, fuck this stuff, blah, blah, blah. I just didn't even bother responding.
Yeah, so if we look at sobriety, what amends dictates to me is that I have to tell you the behaviors that I've committed towards you, apologize for them, basically outline what my new actions are going to be so that I've mitigated those behaviors. Then at the end of all of it, I then ask you, have I missed anything? So then you get to unload.
Right.
Because, I've been drunk.
Yeah.
I don't remember everything that I did to you, right? How I victimized you.
Right.
Then from there, I have to acknowledge it. Then the last question in amends that's supposed to be asked is, do you want to continue this relationship with new boundaries?
Right.
That actually provides a way to have a new relationship with new boundaries.
Yeah.
Right? Let me ask you this. Because we are talking about, like, this is obviously the fundamental piece of being a mother, right?
Yes.
And with your daughter, right? Is there any repeat from the current situation that you're in with your daughter's significant other to the situation that your father was in, to what you had learned about? Like, I'm not saying I'm not saying the actual situation as in what physically happened. What I'm saying is the emotions that were involved. So, like, is there a pattern, is what I'm getting at, from what happened before to what's happening now? And then, you know, it passes on. So, like, for instance, for me, I would suggest that the pattern that happened between me and my mom, she lost her dad at 2, and basically so did I.
Yeah.
Right? Like, like that's the pattern. Right? So, like, all I'm saying is, can you foresee that pattern? Because now that I see that, even like for my own, like, yeah, for my own, I would never not want to be in their life.
Yeah.
I would be in their life. You know what I mean? Like, that would be the break of the sequence of events that continues to happen in so-called previous history.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, can you foresee that? I guess that's
well. So like from my experience as a child to my daughter's experience right now.
Yeah.
Well, my biological father was in the picture until I was 3 years old. And then I have heard different versions as to why he no longer was.
So either way,
there has been blame put on my mom that she didn't allow him in the picture anymore.
But let's be honest. In that moment, maybe he wasn't healthy enough to be in the picture. And also, there's a trust thing that needs to be rebuilt.
Yeah. Well, he didn't struggle with addiction until like his 40s.
Huh.
Yeah. So he was, from what I've heard from everyone, even my mom, had no problem with drugs or alcohol. Huh. But whatever the reason being, he was no longer in the picture. And I guess how that plays into right now is that is the last thing I want for my daughter, is for her dad to be in the picture for a couple of years till 3 and then disappear and then come back. I want all or nothing is how I feel. That's my protectiveness of this whole situation. I want you in or out, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want the in and out.
Well, because I think you also can contrast, or not contrast, but you can parallel the feeling of what it's like to have the biological man come back, and maybe by then you have met somebody, and then all of a sudden your daughter's in the same turmoil that you were once in.
Yeah,
when
I
you
don't
were
want
11
that.
years old.
No.
You see what I'm saying,
yeah.
right? So like, you've now seen a potential pattern.
Yeah.
How do you mitigate now? And it's not that it's going to be perfect, but it's at least you're looking at the past to what is now.
Yeah.
Right? Well, I don't know. I think we could wrap it up there. Thanks for listening. Subscribe to all of our stuff. You can get us at Instagram, Life on Life's Terms Podcast, all one word. What's yours again?
Chelsey _ Life on Life's Terms.
And you can check out the After the Show blog at www.lifeonlifestermspodcast.com. And you can get all of our afterthoughts. I'm sure that there's going to be serious afterthoughts on this episode.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can also make sure to hit that subscribe and like stuff. You can also check us out at minds.com. We post stuff there, and actually there's a little bit more stuff on minds.com just because blockchain helps us not get censored. So we have more relevant and recent news on that forum itself. So yeah, hope you subscribe and tell all your friends, share and like, and do all that great stuff. And until the next show, talk to you then.
See ya.
Bye for now.